everyone, it's Tamara Thompson, the host of Video Marketing for Business podcast, and I'm really excited today because I have a special guest joining me, Esther Kiss, and she's the host of Born to Influence, actually her overall media brand, but she can tell you a little bit more about that as we jump into this, because I just want to get right to it, because she is the go-to for PR and media and a lot of other stuff. She's got strategies beyond galore that help get people exposure and media. And since this is all about video marketing, she's going to talk to us about some stuff. So Esther, thank you so much for just being here today and just being in my life. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Tamara. I'm excited to be here.
Well, and you have some cool news coming up. You've got a new site, you got stuff going on, you got a lot of moving parts going on probably right now, but you've worked with a lot of the big dogs and you continue to work with the big dogs. Can you share just a little bit about what you do and what you create as an experience for entrepreneurs and influencers?
Yeah, I have a publicity agency called Born to Influence, and we work with experts, coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, marketers, help them get in the media, whether it's traditional media like TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, and also a lot of online media like podcasts, YouTube shows, Facebook Live interviews, Zoom chats, anything that would put them in front of the right audiences. And so we typically work with them because they want to elevate their brand, they want more credibility, they want more leads and sales. And sometimes it's to generate buzz for something like a book launch or a live event or a course launch. It's really for people who have a really good offer that's already proven, and now they want to get the word out there and they want to get more clients and customers.
So you really have established your authority in this space really well, because you've worked with people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Brian Lebeck. Those are just a few. I mean, you could probably name so many different people that you've worked with now and currently or in the past.
Yeah.
What are some of the examples of some of the things that you've created for some of these influencers with their launches, those results they've gotten?
So with the book launches, we typically work with authors while they're still working on their manuscript, because we really need some lead time to be able to line up interviews so that we can get the pre-sales for the books. And so this has resulted in literally over 7 figures for some of my clients who have really strong offers, not directly with the book sales, but they can track it to when people buy the book. Now they're buying something else as well, like their software program or their mastermind or their coaching program, but it all starts with a book. So these multi-7-figure results, best-selling lists, like for example, the LA Times, Publishers Weekly, the New York Times. A lot of my clients have been featured at the New York Public Library, gotten interviews there, prestigious speaking events. So it just really depends on what they're looking for. That's where we try to get them placed. And whether it's national TV or big podcasts, or sometimes it's very small audiences, but very, very targeted. It could be like a presentation for a private Facebook group. But if all of those attendees there are multi-7-figure business owners, you're probably going to make some money. So it's that strategy.
Yeah, well, like I said, you work with the established individuals that have a larger following, that have the funds to afford your services, because you have that high-end package offer, and you've been able to work with some of the best in our industry and digital marketing and events and things like that. And I just remember that one day where you're like, it's so cool. I'm going to be working with Gary Vaynerchuk, and that's just credibility right there. And I think credibility is a great aspect of what video and media can do and help position people as the authority in their niche. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like in like media and how credibility can really help your business grow?
Definitely. It's kind of crazy because there is the aspect of branding where you see those logos, for example, on someone's website that as seen on ABC, NBC, CBS, Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, etc. It truly gives that elevated perceived value. Well, it's not just perceived, because in order to be featured there, you're going to be good at what you do. You're going to have a strong track record. But psychologically, it gives that impression to people that, hey, I feel like this person really knows what they're talking about. And I've heard countless stories where clients tell me that, once we started getting these publicity pieces and feature that and include it in our marketing and on our web presence, now people are signing up faster. They're becoming clients faster. They're spending more money. It's cheaper for us to run advertising, like all of those things that come as a byproduct of having that seal of approval from big brand media. Now, I'm completely also for going after smaller media outlets, smaller in terms of perhaps prestige, like for example, smaller podcasts or online media outlets, because those are where your buyers are very often, people who can afford your services and who want to work with you because they're so niche. But at the same time, having this two-pronged approach of having the credibility with the big brand media and then doing online media together, both at the same time, is where most people see the best results.
Yeah, I'd be curious, since going through COVID and things like that, for some of your clientele, I know that the media, like on the TV side, had to shift in different ways. How was it for some of your clients, like during COVID, like having to shift to do like some media interviews like on Zoom, like that's one of the things that a lot of people record podcasts too. And Zoom has just been that kind of monumental piece, like obviously like billions over the fact of that too. How's that been working for people? What are you seen on it?
So we've seen more Zoom interviews and more opportunities in the online space in terms of getting interviews and getting you in front of audiences. A lot of events are also transitioning to online, so that's usually uses Zoom as well. And then for TV, interestingly, producers are becoming more open to doing the interviews where you call in usually through Skype, or I haven't seen any Zoom ones yet, but it's the same idea that you don't have to travel to a studio. Previously, you would have to go in and you have to be there on time and be prepared that possibly they could cancel the interview last minute purely because, if there's a house fire or a shooting or something, they're going to send the crew there. So now it's not that kind of a situation as much because everything is virtual.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of our clients actually got on some media exposure with some of the news stations, and they just sent out basically requirements like you have to have like a ring light, or you have to have something set up in your backdrop, like it needs to look somewhat professional in the best way that you can, because some people have to be able to set up something in their home office. Maybe they didn't have decor things before because they weren't thinking that they needed to do this. But obviously during the pandemic, people were having to shift, and that's really what was going on. So some of our clients, like Anthony Melchiori from Hotel Impossible, he was getting gigs left and right, and basically he was like going on all these news stations, even like TMZ and all this stuff. And he was like, hey, can you just give me some tips of like how I can section out in this room? He's like, because I have 3 teenagers, or not 3 teenagers, but 3 college kids in the house, my wife, my dog, and I have to utilize the downstairs. So like, I ended up shipping him a podcast mic and a ring light, and he utilized like some room dividers, but I was like, you just have to make sure that it looks nice and you're well lit and you can be heard, so that he could do it. And so he did that. And so it was cool to watch him go through that process, but it's definitely, I'm sure that some of the media outlets were literally like, you have to have these things in place in order to be on, CNN or, whatever that is. But it was just interesting to watch it as people were trying to, even some of the news anchors, like trying to watch them like create their spaces during that time.
You know what, it's so funny that you mentioned this, because I feel like some people are really good at this, and most of my clients already would have that basic equipment anyway for their own content creation if they're doing videos or podcasts or whatever, so they would have that set up. If not, then we give them some suggestions. But I feel like because remote working is so new to most people, like at large, not in our industry necessarily, but for the general public. And so the whole idea of working from your pajamas, etc., is becoming more mainstream. And sometimes I feel like, well, maybe that's just taking it a little too far. Like yesterday, I literally had somebody showing up in her pajamas and like the hair, like, no makeup. Not that you have to have makeup, but
just say like, hey, at least have the top half going, because I'm sure plenty of people are wearing yoga pants down there, right?
So it was, well, I know her, so it's okay. But it wasn't a media interview. It was a one-on-one chat on Zoom. But still, like, you want to be presentable to a degree, at least.
I agree, especially, well, I know you said you know her, but like in the sense of like, like if I'm going to show up for somebody I just met, I'm going to be presentable, I'm going to do my hair, make sure that my background's good, like I want to make sure they can hear me, things like that. So it's just definitely different in people's different mentality. But I think that's just like a rule of thumb to really, be presentable as if you were going in to do, an interview at the media station. Maybe you just should have the mentality, even though it might not be for a podcast interview or something, but that's kind of how I think. Like, I want to show up and represent myself and my brand and, professionalism and
for sure.
Like that. So I'm sure you're the same way. Well, what kind of, like Zoom, like, have you seen any of your clients using Zoom in some other ways? Like I actually flew out to New Orleans a couple of weeks, last week. Okay. So I was speaking at an event, and it was a hybrid event, and they were utilizing Zoom for the virtual event attendees. And then there were some of the speakers like myself that were speaking to a much smaller in-person crowd for about 50 people or so. It was such a different experience to think like hybrid, like, I don't know. Do you see that happening more often, like in 2021, as people kind of transition into that? Like, I mean,
possibly. I mean, it's hard to predict the future. We could not have predicted 2020 in any kind of, unless you're writing sci-fi, probably this is. But, I'm not a fan, to be honest, of the virtual events. I've attended a few that were these smaller networking group kind of chit chat, up to like 20, 30 people. But even that, it becomes difficult to manage. And the hosts have done a really good job with the breakout rooms and all of that stuff. But I feel like we just have to take the reality of what it is. We're not going to replace those large events, the hundreds or thousands of people. It's not going to be the same on Zoom. And I understand from a business perspective, for somebody who is hosting an event or normally would host an event, they will of course try to do it online, but I feel like there needs to be some kind of a shift in what they offer, perhaps, and not to try to force, and make it the same kind of thing, just virtual. Today I talked to someone who is a photographer, and so I asked him if he travels, personal branding photographer, and I asked him if he travels on location to see his clients, and he says that, well, not so much now with the whole pandemic and everything, but I do virtual photography. And I'm like, what? Right?
I was like, can you explain this?
Exactly. So we were on the phone, and he was trying to explain. I haven't seen his portfolio yet, but he was trying to explain to me how he would create a photo session of somebody's virtual event, where he just takes different angles of the screen of that person presenting. And to me, that sounded a little bit, I have to see it, maybe it's good, but like, it just sounded quite bizarre.
I was like, now I'm curious. I want to see what this looks like. I think that a lot of the virtual events that are going on, actually, I just got a call with one of our clients. So they're going to host a virtual event in August. They're all about in-person events, because a lot of the in-person events, of course, convert much higher. I would believe, because you got that human connection, that inspiration, that power of, just consuming something together with other people and being influenced by the room as well as the person on stage. It's just such a different experience. But he was saying, he's like, I don't want to do a hybrid. He's like, but with the virtual side, he's got, the AV team, of course, they're setting it up with Sage events, but they have a photographer there. So that photographer only goes in and takes photos of the speakers, because all the speakers are flying in, but all the attendees are virtual, which I think is a smart idea, because you get that essence of the, the speakers reconnecting, social distancing, whatever their rules and regulations are. But still kind of slowly bringing back that human connection, because I don't know. I keep going back and forth. I actually viewed Event Space yesterday in Scottsdale, and it basically, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like jonesing for it. I was like, okay, so I was like, 2,000 people can fit in here. I was like, I miss going to large events. I love that sense. And just, it's been really, I think, difficult for a lot of people during this time. But what are some ways to what are some of the ways that you actually help your clients on the monetization piece, with publicity and media? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that.
So a couple of things that go into it. One is certainly the messaging, making sure that you're prepared for your interviews and you know what you need to talk about. Because right now it's so, especially for someone who maybe was a speaker before and they are used to traveling from city to city, and they kind of have the same 5 talking points that they do every time. That's their shtick. You can't do that in online interviews or in any media interview. Well, you can, but you're like, change out the name of the interviewer and it's the same show, right? So with the in-person events, it's unlikely that your members of the audience would travel and follow you from city to city to hear. And so it's not as obvious if you're really doing the same talk every time. But with interviews, even if it's not as conversational, more presentation style, still you have to know what are some of those key talking points that new audiences need to hear every time in order to want to learn more, and they need to believe in certain things in order to want to take the next step with you. And also, what is a golden nugget, something that's unique just for that interview, just for that media outlet? Because if you think about it, if someone heard you on a podcast, now they are going to go and want to download the next episode, the next podcast, the next article that you've written, the next TV interview that you've done. And so if you can give them that feeling that, wow, I'm always learning something new from this person, that's how trust gets built, and that's how they start falling in love with you and start buying from you. So messaging is a key part of the monetization. You don't want to be a robot that just spews off the same talking points every time. The other thing is, of course, media training, like knowing how to present yourself. Like, as an example, on TV, 2 minutes, including the questions, that's not a lot of time. Very different than an hour on a podcast, right, where you have the time and the space to go into your story. And even there, though, you have to be intentional with the messages that you share and your talking points, because it's so easy to have a good chit chat and have fun and joke around with the host, and then you don't see any conversions. So dialing in your messaging, knowing what to talk about to move those audiences is important. And then the other thing that is super important to monetizing your publicity is using your interviews once they've been published and connecting it with your existing sales and marketing funnels, bringing it back to that direct response side of your business. So for example, if you have a Zoom chat that was on video or a TV interview, well, let's put it in your autoresponder. Let's use it as a Facebook retargeting ad, as a video views ad, or put your Forbes article there, because you're being very intentional here, right? And you're putting it in front of the right people. In their mind, it's like, oh, I saw this person on TV, or I read this article in this magazine. So the psychological effect of the credibility is very much there. They can sense that, that someone trusted with you, with their audience. And at the same time, you can really target the people who are just on the cusp of buying from you and shorten your sales cycle. And I've seen this work anywhere from free plus shipping offers all the way up to 6-figure agency offers, where they just sell with a phone call and an email, because you put these sequences, these pieces into your marketing sequence.
Yeah, no, we're always talking to our clients about how it's so important to repurpose your content, and Zoom interviews and other types of media and podcasts are great for that. And we've been able to help with our content marketing agency, being able to repurpose things where somebody might be obviously on another show, and then of course they reformat that to get the transcription, create a promo article, send it out in email campaigns, and be able to link it back there, but also tie it in with the messaging that goes into what their current offer is, because they're being positioned on somebody else's show that has credibility as well. So like you said, it's just very important to be able to keep those things together, because I think a lot of people start going on these shows, and then they don't even take the time to utilize these materials and things that they have access to. They're like, oh, I'm going to go be on so-and-so's podcast. Okay, cool. They'll share it out to like social media like once, but why not share it out into your groups, into your email campaigns, your social media, creating the micro content, like all of that stuff that can be just going into different places for that omnipresence feel. So you're everywhere, but you're also with this person that you were on their show or they were on your show. And it's just it's so rewarding when we're able to work with people and see them just all over the place. Like I was literally on a call today and they were literally like, Tamara, you're like all over social media. I was like, well, that's my team too. I was like, yeah, but they're just, broadcasting me all over the place, from micro content from our video podcast and other things, and being on other shows. And also like taking content from being a speaker at somebody else's event, right? So like I asked this event, like it's a great way to get yourself out there too. Say, hey, would you be open to me having that file from my talk? Is it okay if I splice up some of it for media to promote back to your event? Because I'll be a speaker there next year too, building that relationship. But also another person, I was on their audio podcast. I said, hey, I know you're only doing audio, but you are recording it on Zoom. Do you want to send my team the Zoom and send me your branding, and we'll just chop it up for you so you have some cool like video teasers? He was like, wow, really? Like you do that for me? And I was like, yeah, I'll have my team do that and create that, because I mean it's more for them to help promote too, because they don't have that option. They can see what my team can do, but it's also providing value for him as well as myself too. So it's like just win-win for everybody. And I think just thinking bigger, like you're saying, is just so important.
One aspect of it certainly is the repurposing and sharing it everywhere. If you think about it, most people consume social media content in their news feed. Unless they are a diehard fan, they're not going to go to your profile to see if you posted something. And so if they're only seeing it in their news feed, they're going to see a fraction of your content. From every 100 posts, they might see like 4 or 5, right? So you have to, if you think about it that way, how often do you have to share from the same exact interview so that you have a decent enough reach? And then really where it's powerful is where you put a little bit of ad dollars behind it and run it to your existing audience, or even to new audiences. And if you think about it, how people like to share content when they see, something like great article, great blog post, great podcast interview, they're much more likely to share that than, hey, buy my stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Another thing too is that this doesn't only apply to people in the expert space. If you have an e-commerce product, or if you have a supplement or whatever, take your TV interviews, for example, and cut it into the opening of your video sales letter. And you can test it. Just do that, and then do the same exact sales letter, but without the part that you're on TV, and see which one converts better. And we can kind of bet on it. I've seen this work really, really well as well. So there's just so many ways to use it. It really is very powerful.
Yeah, no, we've seen clients when we're doing some different pieces of content stuff. Like right now, we've seen IG Reels doing really well because it's very competitive to TikTok, depending on if people want to go that route or not. But IG Reels is a great way with the algorithm, having more views on that option for the algorithm currently. So taking that little piece of that interview, or if you have over 10,000 followers on Instagram, using the swipe up option, it's cool to push it out, but also, like you said, put some ads into some of the short micro content as well, linking either back to a specific offer, or of course the full episode to learn more about what you guys were talking
about. Just
$1
a day. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but the consistency and the exposure creates really that omnipresence.
Do you have any I'm sure you have lots, but can you name just a specific scenario or situation where just like a success story result that you've helped provide for one of your clients? You could just have one experience where you've just seen a whole campaign explode, and if you are able to share some of those results, I'd love to hear it.
Certainly. So I worked with Ryan Levesque on both of his books, and what we did with the first campaign, he did a little bit of TV, he did some magazines, Forbes, Inc., all that kind of stuff for the credibility piece of it. Now, I have to add that he had done media prior to that, so some of those as seen on kind of mentions on his website were already there, but specifically for the book, because the content is so niche, it's really for entrepreneurs and people who want to start an online business. With his whole survey funnel methodology, he really wanted to focus on podcasts. So we booked him on 80 podcasts over the course of the year, and he is very data driven. So he was giving a unique coupon code to every single show. And so he knew when people bought the book, what else did they buy, right? And so we ended up adding over $1.8 million to his business during that year. And then of course, some of those clients stay on and they buy even more the next year. And so that was really, really successful. But then the second book, because now he had a platform, 2 years later, we worked on the book Choose, and it was so amazing. It would be purely focused on podcasts and done even better than that, even better than the first one in terms of monetary results. And, getting him in the New York Public Library, the library picked it as their book of the month. They included it in their summer picks. It was a bestseller. So definitely it's something that when you know your audience and you know your message and use the retargeting strategies that we talked about to promote your interviews, it can be very powerful.
I love that. And you are definitely the prime example of someone that knows their niche, and you are the expert and the go-to in this space for sure. If people were looking to connect with you or learn more about how they can work with you individually or learn more about your offers, where would they be able to go, Esther?
Definitely. You can go to my website, estherkiss.com. It's ESTHERKISS.com. And I do have some goodies there. Or if you feel like you might want to get publicity for yourself and want to have a chat, just email me, esther@estherkiss.com.
That's awesome. Is there any other like social platforms that you like to connect on, or do you just love people just connecting?
Yeah, it's the same name everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram.
I love it. And we'll put all the information too in the description, and so that you can definitely connect with Esther, because she is definitely a go-to in this industry. She's so, well, you know, like she's got so much knowledge in this space. She's just, she's a long dear friend to me too. We met quite a few years back, and I appreciate everything that she does for her clients and just in the media space in general. So if you're looking for that go-to person, definitely talk to her, especially those that have a successful business in place and they have those firm offers and they just want that next step for that media exposure, because she is your gal. So I appreciate you so much for just being on this show today, Esther. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I will see everybody else next week.